All right, let's talk about Anne Boleyn. I know. You think you know the story, right? The tragic queen, the failed wife. But what if I told you that whole story is, well, wrong? What if she wasn't a victim at all, but the architect of a full-blown revolution? That's the story we're getting into today. The other Anne Boleyn.
Seriously, when you hear the name Anne Boleyn, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's that classic tragic tale, right? Henry VIII's second wife, beheaded because she didn't produce a male heir. It's a simple, dramatic story we've been told for centuries. But that framing, it kind of erases what was really going on.
And that's the reality we're digging into. This whole idea of her being just a seductress, it's a huge oversimplification. The truth is, the evidence points to something way more interesting, a revolutionary who literally changed the course of an entire nation.
So let's put these two ideas side by side, the legend versus the reality. You're about to see just how stark the difference is.
I mean, just look at this. On one side, you've got the legend. She's just the second wife, the one who couldn't have a son. Her whole identity is tied to a man. But then you look at the reality, and a totally different person comes into focus. Politically brilliant, incredibly well-educated, a driving force for Protestant reform. So the big question is, which one is the real Anne Boleyn?
Okay, so let's get into the evidence for this more radical version of her story. What does it actually mean to call her an architect of English reform? And look, we're not talking about small, quiet acts of defiance here. Anne was a major player in the Protestant movement. She went up against the Pope, the single most powerful religious figure in Europe. And she pushed for something that was considered totally radical back then, letting regular people read the Bible in English. But the big one? Her relationship with Henry was the tipping point, the thing that finally broke England away from the Catholic Church. That's not just big, that is absolutely monumental.
And her influence didn't just stop at religion. Oh no, it was deeply political. In fact, you could say her actions were truly state-changing. Now, what do we mean by state-changing? This isn't just about a big event. It's about something so significant that it completely alters the path of a nation. And the argument here is that Anne Boleyn, well, she was the spark that lit that fire. So you can just imagine the Tudor court, right? Everyone is gossiping about the scandal. The king is leaving his wife of 2 decades. But while they were whispering about that, something way, way bigger was happening. Their marriage wasn't just a personal affair. It was the catalyst for a total political and religious reinvention of the country. It didn't just shake up the royal family, it changed England forever. And from this huge, nation-altering marriage, Anne did have a child. But it wasn't the son Henry was so desperate for. It was a daughter. Just one. And who was that one daughter? Only Elizabeth I, one of the greatest monarchs in English history. And here's the really incredible part. Anne herself was a huge advocate for the power of female rulers. She was laying the intellectual groundwork for her own daughter's reign years before anyone could have imagined it. She wasn't just a mother, she was a visionary. Okay, so if she was this brilliant, powerful figure, how did it all go so wrong? Why the spectacular, brutal fall? That question brings us to her execution, and a completely different way of looking at her so-called crimes. The argument is actually pretty simple and pretty chilling. Anne got too powerful. Her intelligence, her political savvy, her influence over the king. It was a direct threat to the old boys' club running the court. And when they realized they couldn't control her, they decided they had to get rid of her. And the charges they cooked up? They were designed to be as horrifying and impossible to defend as you can get. Witchcraft, incest, treason. I mean, come on, this wasn't just about cheating. These accusations were meant to make her seem like a monster, something totally unnatural and a danger to the entire kingdom. So when you look at that list, you've just got to ask, what was her real crime? Her real crime was ambition, plain and simple. In a world that demanded women be quiet and passive, Anne Boleyn was sharp, she was outspoken, and she was incredibly ambitious. She didn't just want power, she knew how to use it. And for that, she was destroyed. And all of this whole new way of looking at her life, it gives her a new title. Not a victim, not a seductress, a woman of chaos. But not chaos as in destruction. Chaos because she turned the entire established order on its head. And that right there is her real legacy. It's so much bigger than one king or one scandalous marriage.
Her ambition, her influence, it completely shattered the old rules. She showed everyone that a woman could be a serious political force. So no, she didn't just change who was on the throne. She redefined who was even allowed to be near it. A legacy, by the way, that her own daughter would go on to fulfill spectacularly. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? How many other people in history do we remember for how they died, while completely missing the revolution they started?